You're up.
My tale is long, sir. Are you certain you wish me to go first?
Indeed.
I would love to tell you my tale.
Why not get it out of the way first?
I see you're a fellow bird enthusiast. I do hope at some point in the evening you'll be telling us how you came to this companion. I will certainly be getting to my bird companion's story. Is a large portion of my quest, my days on this earth that have been beneficial to me have been with this bird. My earliest memory is being alone on a street. I was about 4 years old. I was begging for food in a street, in a marketplace, and a very rich man dressed all in purple, covered in jewels, surrounded by attendees, looked at me with my hands held out and smacked me as hard as he could across my face. I flew backwards into a wall. One of the gems from one of his rings went flying and landed on the wall with me. He laughed and said something about how the poor and needy are the problem of this world. And his attendees also laughed, and they all spat as they walked by. I was completely alone. I don't believe I ever had parents. I was orphaned. I took that small gem with me from his ring, and I looked around for a way to exchange it for food. And then I noticed the man with the purple robe speaking to a guard and pointing at his ring and then back at me. He saw I had something in my hands. The guard came towards me. I thought he might have accused me of stealing it, so I ran away. I managed to, through the crowd, hide and get away from the guard, and I hid under a fish cart. Across the pathway from myself, under another fish cart, I saw another young lad, about a couple of years older than me. Once the guards passed, I came out, and he came out as well. He pulled me into an alley, and he started talking to me. And I told him what happened. He took the gem, brought it to a trader. We ate a great deal for a solid week off this one gem. And so we became partners, he and I, and he taught me a great deal about the streets. His name was Gasparo. I don't believe I had a name before that, but he called me Caspian. At some point, we were captured as street urchins. The guards are pretty vigilant in this town. I don't even remember the name of the town. But they brought us to an orphanage. At this point, we had both practiced in breaking locks and picking them with random bits of metal we found laying around, pins, nails, whatever we could. We managed to break out of this orphanage 3 times, being caught every single time. Until one day, a man dressed in humble brown robes came to the orphanage and said, "Give me your 2 most terrible children." And so the matron of the orphanage pointed us out and said, "Take those 2 whelps, get them out of our sight." And so we went to this monastery deep in the mountains, in the forest, a gigantic building, but very plain. In the center of this monastery was a large caged garden full of small trees and every exotic bird you could imagine. There were 2-legged birds that didn't fly, giant things, 6 feet tall, ones with massive feathers that fanned out behind them, all sorts of birds that you wouldn't believe. I became to know these monks as Loxleyan monks. Apparently, the man who started this monastery was a man called Robin of Loxley. This man was a very old, retired thief who trained every one of the monks in this place how to be a better thief and the reasons behind stealing that would be justifiable. He taught us all that the universe evened things out. If you do ill will on another man, ill will comes about you. I could not enjoy these monks' companionship more. Everything they said made so much sense. I hated these wealthy people that had everything, and they taught us that there was no need for these people to have wealth when there were so many needy. They taught us a great deal about the social caste network, where the wealthy controlled everything, and it was unbelievable. These monks traveled the land looking for other problem children, teaching us our ways, and sending us out when we were of a certain age. But it was rumored that these monks held great wealth. I saw no such great wealth, but they were frequented by other thieves, which they all squelched. There was members of thieves' guilds that would come and try to steal from them, and they would try and bring them in, and if they didn't want to join, they were killed. In very, very horrible, horrible ways.
It sounds like a rugged past.
It was still a great group of dudes. I gotta tell you, they were all drunk all the time. They called themselves merry. I don't understand what that means.
Nicholas?
No, they're just
I don't think
merry.
so. Yeah, I think they were just merry. But Caspian and myself and Gasparo would travel out on these small quests. They would give us tests. They would have us try to untie these impossible knots. And then they would have us timed. They would blindfold us in picking locks. These were very interesting trials, but throughout my life, and they were very kind to me. They taught me this sense of companionship, brotherhood. And in their bringing in street urchins, at one point they brought in this very dark-skinned woman named Vivière. Gasparo and I instantly fell in love with this woman, and she would be our friendship's undoing. As most women do. Anyway, Caspian,
Yes, I agree.
myself, I was a bit shy with the women, whereas Gasparo was able to approach them more easily. He was a bit of a drunkard. I learned a lot from him, but he always had wine on him, and he would always share his wine with this woman first. And it always made her a little loose, and she liked him a great deal. One time, he snuck away with her down into a valley, and I followed them. And I saw they got naked, and they totally hooked up, and I was like really pissed off. I was like, you gotta be shitting me. That's that girl that I was into.
Wait, did you
I
write this
love black
paragraph
girls.
when you were clearly in a different state of mind?
Jungle fever.
Go ahead, keep going.
I got a lot of
Sorry.
shit written down.
Yeah, that was
I got a
awesome.
lot of
Keep going.
shit written down.
I have appendices.
It was like
That's
they
all
were.
right.
It was like they were doing
You
it in
were
front of me
documenting
to mock me. They were doing it in front of me to mock me. I was like enraged. I was furious. And she was very nice to me too. She seemed to like me. But I vowed at that moment that any woman I was ever with, I would make sure others saw. I would make sure that others would see. So
That's very noble of you.
they started coming. They were on their way back to the monastery. And I fled back to the monastery myself. And I found solitude in this aviary with the birds. The monks would raise them from eggs. I found that later what they would do is they would steal money and send out merchants all across the globe exotic eggs. They would bring them back and they would raise them from an egg. And they said, if you raise an egg yourself, the bird will be linked to you forever. And there was one egg that Gasparo and I had that we had found ourselves in a very strange nest. And that one egg is the one that I went back to for solitude. I spoke to it every single day. And this time I went back to the monastery and I knew they were coming back and I knew what they had just done. And I took this egg and I ran outside with it. And I saw them come back and they split ways. And I went to the Gasparo and I said, I took the egg. And I said to him, I said, I know what you took. And he's like, brother, I took nothing. This is nature. We raised that egg together. And we started arguing. I don't even remember now what made it so heated, but I was so furious. And my anger was indeed misplaced. We ended up fighting. And in our fight, we happened to not notice the screams and flames behind us. See, one of the monastery's enemies had come in great force and started the monastery on fire. All of the monks were trying to put it out. Vivier was nowhere to be seen. There was complete chaos in this place. And I had the egg in my pouch. Once we finally did notice the flames, we had to just run top speed out of that place. We split ways, and I didn't realize in the panic that he had taken the egg. He had taken it. I was left with nothing, and I just ran from this burning monastery, and I vowed never to see him again. But I learned a great deal from them. And at some point in my adventuring, after that, the bird came back to me, fully grown and fully intelligent, and told me that Gasparo had died in a dungeon.
He told you this with his own beak.
He's an intelligent bird who's able to speak. He's a parrot. Very intelligent bird.
Oh,
Bit of a wise ass.
Gosh,
But he
I
told
can
me that
think
Gasparo
of
had died.
some intelligent creatures.
And I've been just traveling with him, doing what I can, enjoying myself, because my past life has been done. Every woman I've been with has been in front of people, intentionally so.
Come on, man. Alright, you done? That's your story?
Yes!